Thank you, Veronica. I mean, Veronica. I was having Veronica on the mind. Thank you, Lynn. Thank you, Lynn. Um, okay. Can anyone hear? Everyone hear okay? I always want to make a test of the mic. Make sure. All right. Fantastic. Okay. I'd like to continue on with what I started last week. Doing something different with my show, and I want to go into something called the Cosmic History Chronicles. I believe this fits in well with the spirit of the Awakening Together program, in that I find a lot of truth that is, I think, parallels teachings like the Infinite Way and the Course in Miracles. As I explained last week, this is more of a overview of the whole cosmos, the of in eternity, the what he calls cosmic history, and the name of the book is the Book of the Throne, and it is by Jose Arguelles. For those who do not know or are not familiar with the Cosmic History Chronicles. But what I want to do, and what I did last week, was there is an introduction that is written in this book, and it is called Preparing the Reader for Cosmic History Chronicles. And I want to read it one more time, and I may just read it um, when I start this talk, because to me this is a lot like the course. When I started reading it, it was something I couldn't understand, and I was very limited in what I can really get out of it, until I had to spend a lot of time and effort trying to figure out the language of the course. So I think this goes hand in hand with that, because there's a lot of terms. This book has a lot of its own vocabulary, and some of the concepts are not everyday concepts that you hear all of the time. A lot of this is new to me, and I'm still at the tip of the iceberg as far as really understanding it. But what I'm reading right now, I understand enough of it, at least the first part of it, where I see a lot of parallels with the Course in Miracles and other non-dual teachings. So what I like to read is this: when you first encounter cosmic history, what you are actually dealing with is a confrontation of your own unexamined assumptions about reality. Therefore, it is wise, when you encounter this knowledge, to be able to put your mind on hold. That is to say, your conceptual mind, your mind of acquired knowledge, your mind that you have inherited from birth. You have to put this mind on hold, and then practice how to keep it there. And to me, this is what he's talking about, is the ego mind, the survival mind, um, and that is the only mind that is birthed in this physical body. Okay, so through meditation, you should practice stopping the mind and becoming familiar with the fact that your usual habitual thoughts arise without you even trying. And these habitual thoughts intrude as a filter on reality. And what I believe that he's talking about here are blockages that the Course in Miracles is mainly designed to remove. And at least that is my opinion of what the Course is and what the Course has done for me. It is important to see that your habitual thoughts or your concepts about reality are like phantoms that arise automatically, but they are just phantoms. It is important to realize how these phantoms can insert themselves automatically and unconsciously into the screen of your waking reality, so that your behavior is actually a function of these thoughts or patterns about which you are basically unconscious. Only when you truly see this can you approach new thoughts or a new vision of reality. So I think this is important for um, anyone that wants to understand any of this. Is pretty much the same attitude that that you used when first studying the Course of Miracles or anything new. And especially this is because this is really something that is designed also to remove blockages of the time and the material place that we live in. And but it, like I said, it takes a more cosmic view. So I did read a couple of pages last week, and I'm going to continue on from there, and I'll do my best to explain some of the concepts that come up as I'm reading this. But this is the very first chapter of the book, and even though it is, there is still some terms here that I needed to look up and to know exactly what is being talked about here. So I'm going to start with where I left off from last week, and then it goes like this: the universe is a complete, complex whole thought of God, consisting of infinite numbers of forms, processes, and structures, all of which exist for the involution and evolution of the soul from nothingness into density, and from density into light. So last week we talked about what is involution and what is evolution. And the involution is the rise from the nothingness into material existence of matter. And where we are at right now, as we're in the process of involution, the matter and our matter consciousness, material consciousness is getting more and more and more dense until it reaches a point, which happened in 2012, where now it's starting the evolution to a spiritual, non-material process. And he calls it the evolution of the soul. And in the course really, especially the foundation of FIP, Foundation of Inner Peace, I think is what it is. The concept of the soul was taken completely out, as far as I know, but it was used in the text. And what I'm thinking, because the definition of a soul within this context, and I'll read a little bit from last week. It says the principle of the soul, which can be understood as the living breath of a thought of God that manifests in a particular form or form process. So the soul is not limited to just the human psyche, human being, or us in this spirit as this human form. And I'm thinking that maybe because the course is just dealing with the removal of barriers of just the of the human being, the human consciousness, that bringing the soul into it probably opens up a whole another type of question. Well, is it just the humans that have soul, and then there's a whole other explanation, that cosmic relationship explanations that have to go along with it. But this is just me just speculating as I go on into this. But this book refers to everything that that God manifests through its imagination and its power of creation. So once again, the sentence here is the universe a complex, complete, and complete meaning oneness. There's only one, non-dual, complex whole thought of God, consisting of infinite numbers of forms, processes, and structures, all of which exist for the involution and evolution of the soul from nothingness into density and from density into light. So I'd like to think that I'm moving from density into light at this point in time. In the nothingness, there is only the void. Then God fills that void with the thought. The thought then becomes a manifestation, and in that process of manifestation, which the law of time defines as the evolution of time and consciousness, the thought goes through the stages of preconscious and instinctual unconscious, and then into types of more evolved consciousness, until finally the thought reaches a level of consciousness and continuing consciousness. So I believe this is where we are at right now. In the Mayan calendar, they have 9 stages, is what they're talking about, from the Big Bang all the way to all of these different levels of consciousness. And what is misunderstood about that calendar is that it is not primarily a keeper of time. It is actually, it tracks consciousness, and stages of consciousness is what it tracks. And it does, and what it does, it corresponds those stages of consciousness into into the law of time. As it says here, the law of time defines the evolution of time as consciousness. So, and then the next sentence is, this final stage is, properly speaking, the stage of evolution. So, like I was mentioning earlier, right now we are at that final stage where we are kind of like turning the corner into the denseness of a material consciousness. And however that takes form in turning that corner, and I believe that it's happening right now, just looking at society, looking at the elections, where the people that are want to hang on to this material consciousness of the involution of history, are digging in their heels and wanting to hang on to it, while there are others that are more willing, or for me, I'm sick and tired of the ego thought process, and I want to move on to something else. So I'm very much willing to let go of the ego consciousness, and I'm very much willing to evolve. And so this supposedly is what is going on right now. We are in that stage where we're turning the corner, and there was a lot of speculation that this process was going to be like when I think it was in 2012 in December, that all of a sudden our DNA was all going to shift and we're automatically gonna lose material and ego consciousness or something like that. But obviously that's not the way it is. It's going to come with, what people like us, what we're doing as far as studying the course. We got to work at it. We got to work on it. We got to work at it and evolve into that spiritual consciousness. But at the same time, we're being evolved also by the degree of how much that ego consciousness is present now in our lives, that we have to pay attention to it more than ever in this final stage, because we need to evolve out of it. So it's very much present right now. And so anyways, this is what the book is telling us where we're at right now. And so it says, in some sense, you could say it is all evolution, but it is actually broken down into these two processes of involution and evolution. And so I can see what he means, that yeah, we can all call it all evolution, because even from us in the beginning of this Big Bang space or period of eternity. And by the way, the book goes on and says that this is just one small space of eternity of multiple, I don't know, thousands, millions of Big Bangs or whatever, and all the different dimensions that occur within that. And so this is all pretty, I mean, it's beyond imagination, beyond my imagination, but it's written in a way where I can pick out and make it useful for me in today. Okay, so the next paragraph goes, the soul is what moves through the process of involution into matter and evolution out of matter in the universe. Consciousness is what evolves the soul from different states, from preconscious to unconscious, up to superconscious, and then subliminal and hyper-organic consciousness. Consciousness that is beyond any consideration of the mind. So the consciousness goes, well, I mean, I would even say that is even true right now, because I can't understand more than past the third dimension, and I don't know how many dimensions that there are, but anyways, that's my comment on that sentence. And then he mentions a person called Sri Aurobindo, who, I don't know who that is, but this is what he says. He says that even the very concept of mind is only a function of ignorance, of some lower state of consciousness seeking knowledge. And to me, that defines the ego to a T. Mind is only a relative transition in the evolution of the whole dynamic of consciousness. So at some point in time, what this is saying, that the ego mind is only a relative transition of the evolution. So I wish it would hurry up and evolve in my lifetime, but I'm not sure that's going to happen. At one point, consciousness actually becomes free from mind, That is the subliminal dynamic of consciousness. Therefore, it goes beyond mind. This is the ultimate reach of consciousness. And I imagine what he's talking about is where we were before the tiny mad idea crept in and started this this whole material process. But I can only guess because I don't know for sure. But this was what it looks like. It points to, and that's what I like about this. I'm not sure if this whole concept of what this book is about would have even caught my interest if it wasn't for the Course in Miracles and the similar dynamics of what I consider is true in my life, that how I experience the Course. So anyways, the next paragraph is, when you look at who you are, we are actually just these tiny little vessels of highly vibrant nervous systems that represent a pinpoint pivot between involution and evolution of the soul, which is being evolved by divine consciousness and regulated by the law of time. And what I like about that sentence, what it tells me, that this is, like the Course, is a required course, that we are going to be evolved by divine consciousness. When the Course says it's a required course, it means that, you know, we're going to get there. The blockages are going to come out, and we are going to evolve if we like it or not, because we're all going to go through this required course. And this is saying the same things, being evolved by divine consciousness and regulated by the law of time. Everything that exists has a precise term and span. Everything comes into being and mutates at precise moments in a synchronized timing process, which is governed completely by the law of time. So what this means to me is there is a process of when the fish came out of the ocean and grew legs and started walking, and same thing with birds growing wings, and especially for us as a human species, there were times when it took the time that for us to get the ability to walk, to make fires, to discover the wheel or how to use the wheel. All of those things, all what he calls mutates at precise moments. This is what I believe this whole sentence means. And also what it means is that we are still in that whole process of it. And like I said before, this is a required course if we like it or not. Okay, so the process of going from involution to evolution accelerates with increased consciousness of the law of time. We are also talking about the acceleration of going from more dense states to less dense states of matter. This brings in a whole host and range of transmutions in the biomolecular process of life that we are all undergoing right now. In this process, there's a tendency, for instance, of a vegetarian diet, then a raw food diet, ultimately leading to a breatharianism. I guess that is the state where you just breathe and you don't need to have pizza or anything like that. This corresponds to the fact that consciousness is evolving the soul back into the less dense states, and ultimately, when the soul is released altogether from dense states, you reach the point of maximum superconsciousness. From your hyper-organic into totally subliminal consciousness, or consciousness without a body. So I can't tell you what the whole precise definition of hyperorganic subliminal consciousness, maximum superconsciousness. I'll leave it at consciousness without a body. And this is what I believe the Course is telling us that we are going to go back to, is in that place of pure spirit that we without a body, because all in the Course it makes that statement, the argument, and that revelation of truth that we are not a body. So the Course is describing and saying, well, this is the process that we are going to go through. Okay, the next paragraph. This is a description of the philosophy of cosmic history. We can only learn about cosmic history because the law of time became conscious, which means we became conscious and we can understand it. Only when the law of time became conscious could the perception of reality be dynamically and dramatically changed. And I imagine that signifies that we can now take part in this evolution of this evolutionary period to an extent. There's a function of actual living human beings becoming conscious through a whole prophetic regime in the unfolding of the divine plan. So we are now able to grasp this whole process of what is our role in the divine plan and our part in it, without just being a bystander, like a tree or a snail or whatever your favorite animal or insect is or whatever. When the law of time made its agent or discoverer increasingly self-conscious, that's us, that is to say, of himself as a vehicle of transmission, or a terton, which means a hidden treasure finder, then that necessitated the object of transmission, which is the apprentice or the Red Queen. And I did look up Red Queen, and Red Queen is a knower of ourselves as evolution. So now we are can be apprentices in learning and being part of the whole, and be conscious of the whole process of evolution, of evolution. Okay, this principle of binary transmission then had to be brought into conscious manifestation. This is important to communicate since we are dealing with a dual theme. First, it is the philosophy of cosmic history, and second, it is the instrumentation of the process of transmission by which cosmic history becomes known on this planet at this time. It's just the process of us being conscious of what is really happening right now. And so it goes on to say, through the living agents, which is us. The philosophy of cosmic history brings together the principle of the evolution of the soul, the evolution of consciousness, and the law of time. So, what I gather is being said here, it is through our consciousness together, which if I'm referring to using the Course as a reference, I'm looking at this as the sonship. The sonship has to bring together the principal evolution of the soul, the evolution of consciousness, and the law of time. So as the Course is saying, we all are going together. We all have to do it in order for us to evolve. All of us are going together, and we all have a part in communicating this, which this is also telling us that this is important to communicate. And what the Course is telling us, what the body is just a communication device. So in this sentence, it's also affirming what the Course is talking about, what our bodies are for. They're communication devices to serve the sonship. Okay, as a vehicle for involution and evolution, the universe itself becomes that which goes from unconscious to conscious to superconscious. Given this philosophy, cosmic history is the way of recording and articulating that process by means of the conduits divinely predisposed to accommodate its manifestation. Okay, given that his philosophy is a way of recording and articulating that process by means of conduits divinely disposed to accommodate its manifestation. This, to me, just says the aspects of what we would call God, our spiritual truth of intelligence, order that is inherently us. And we are the divinely predisposed to accommodate the manifestation, which is this evolution. So we are divinely predisposed for peace, for intelligence and order, for happiness, for joy, for all of that. We are divinely predisposed to accommodate this manifestation. Okay, next paragraph. The philosophy of cosmic history can also be described as the redemption of the world soul from the terror of profane history. And so for my 2 cents, this is profane history is ego history, survival history. This brings us to a level of a relative assumption and application that cosmic history would not exist or have come into being if there were not a need for a world soul to be redeemed from the terror of profane history. Now this, to me, sounds a lot like Holy Spirit, because that is why Holy Spirit exists in this world, or not in this world, in our spiritual, in my spiritual understanding. If we did not have to be redeemed from the tiny mad idea, then there would be no need for the Holy Spirit. And so to read that sentence over again, this brings us to a level of relative assumption and application that cosmic history would not exist or have come into being if there was not a need for the world soul to be redeemed from the terror of profane history. Profane history, let's see if I was going to see if there was a definition in the back of the glossary. There is not, but I cannot imagine it being anything else than the ego thought system. If there were no need for redemption, then there would be no need of cosmic history. But the fact is that the world soul on this particular planet is enmeshed in the terror of profane history. Terror, fear. That's what I'm seeing. The terror they're talking about is fear. Okay, on the next paragraph. On the one hand, the terror or profane history is merely the maximum point of densification that the involution of the soul experiences prior to being sprung fully into its process of evolution. So I'm hoping that we have reached that maximum point of densification, so the soul experiences of each and every one of us can be sprung fully into this process of evolution. Well, I don't feel like I've been very much sprung fully into anything. The word implies that we're just, like freely sprung into a different consciousness or something, but maybe I am sprung into it because my whole life is dedicated to the mind training. I mean, that's what I do from when I wake up to when I go to sleep. I mean, I have my routine for my meditations. I try to practice the presence as much as I can. So maybe that is being sprung fully into the process of evolution. Maybe it is. Well, I guess I hope it is. I don't know. But that's the ego making a judgment for me right now. All I know it is. I'm living my life the way I'm living it, and I am fully into this process of evolution. So if that's being sprung, so be it. Okay, when the soul's involution into matter approaches a point where the matter itself is becoming more complex, more intense, and denser, then the soul involved in that matter increasingly experiences what we refer to as the process of forgetting. In this process of forgetting, that creates ignorance, which in turn creates the propensity to rely on illusionary beliefs, conjecture, or what has gone before without questioning. So that sounds very course-like. This results in the creation of all sorts of dogmatic, unexamined beliefs. And so we can see that all in this whole election process, all of the platitudes being thrown around. Not that I am paying a whole lot of attention to it, but I read it enough in Facebook, and I might turn the TV on once or twice a week. But especially these conventions, you see all of this dogmatic stuff being thrown around that we have got to be loyal to. You know, you got to vote for Hillary Clinton so Trump doesn't get in. So it's like, to me, that's very unexamined, but so what if Trump gets in, you know? I mean, the fact that I really do believe in the required course and really do believe that it's an evolutionary process. And so what's going to happen is going to happen. But as long as I know that it is, like I said, it's a required course for peace, love, and spirituality, then there's nothing that can happen to me, or nothing happen really to happen to any of us, um, because in my defenselessness, my safety lies. And so it's like I don't have, or I can't say I don't have all of these beliefs, but I try not to go along with all of the, if so and so's in, then this is going to happen. If so and so is elected, then that means this, making everything mean something about what is going to happen, and we don't even know what the heck is going to really happen. Is in far as form, at least I don't know. All as I do know that it is going to be a process of spiritual evolution, no matter who gets in, and who gets in is going to be facilitating that. If it looks like the world's got to go through, you know, um, it's some changes or challenges or whatever we want to see, maybe wars or whatever, then that's part of the evolutionary process. But by me having a belief about it and what form it's going to take, it doesn't do anything for my purpose of or what I see in my role to to communicate the spiritual and divine that I believe I am. So, anyways, before I put my 2 cents in, let me read this over, and then and so the rest of the paragraph can make sense. It is the process of forgetting that creates ignorance, which in turn creates. And when they say forgetting, they're the same thing in the course. We're forgetting who we are. We're forgetting who we are as spiritual beings. We're forgetting our spiritual truth. We're forgetting our inheritance as sons and daughters of the divine, of God, of love. So that is the process of forgetting. So in the process of forgetting, that creates ignorance, which in turn creates a propensity to rely on illusionary beliefs, conjecture, or what has gone before without questioning. This results in the creation of all sorts of dogmatic, unexamined beliefs. All of these summarized or taken together create profane history, which is the description of an illusionary universe unconsciously extruded from the mind into the mass of humanity, who are so enmeshed in matter that they don't even know it. And that really resonates with me, the whole part that I'm so enmeshed in matter. I was so enmeshed in ego thinking, ego identity, that I didn't even know it. All as I knew that I was suffering, I was on automatic pilot, that the world could do something to me, the world was against me, I was being attacked, and then attacking, I was judging, condemning, and I was like in hell. And so I very much get what is saying right here, who are so enmeshed in matter that they don't even know it. Not that I know it 100% now. I believe I'm more and more aware, but I can't say that I just hopped out of it, and skipping freely or whatever. I have my challenges every single day. Okay, not knowing of their densification. I like that word densification. Not knowing how dense I was. The mass of humanity merely reflects back an increasingly profane history, which is actually a history of terror. Sounds a lot like projection to me. Okay, this is why the present world model describes a violent universe, and also why we have chaos theories, the theory of entropy, and the doctrine of inexorability in terms of deregulated free market economics. These are all function of the terror of profane history. What creates terror is unexamined points of view and the inability for the humans to examine themselves and their relentless and unconscious addiction to their own relativistic belief system, relativistic ego, survival belief systems. This is actually a complete abdication of freedom. And I do resonate with this paragraph, and I believe this is very course-like also. The course goes through numerous examples of how violent the ego is, how chaotic the ego is. And I like the way it explains it, chaos theories. My ego has theories about everything and anything of how I am a victim of this world. So this whole paragraph really takes the ego consciousness to a level that can be compared to how the Course would define the functions of the ego. Okay, looks like I got time for a couple more paragraphs. Humans are so enmeshed in profane history, or ego thought system, or historical materialism, that they think they have to keep these belief systems going. They think, oh, we have this fertilizer factory now, or we have to genetic modification now, or we have clocks, computers, guns and bums now, so we must keep it all going. We can't possibly turn back the clock. I remember in my college days, I took a political science class that described organizations, more particularly the organizations that have a specific purpose, like the Cancer Society or diabetes or something like that. And when these institutions get born or developed or established, whatever the word I want to use, is that when that purpose is done with, that organization doesn't just fade away. They got to develop another purpose to exist, or they will delay the accomplishing of the purpose that they were established for in the first place in order to survive. It's like these organizations, corporations, or whatever are a living person that have to survive. It's an ego. It's like a one big gigantic egos. So this is what kind of stood out to me when I was reading this, that class I took in political science way back in the day. Okay. And these are all expressions of abdication of freedom or even denial of freedom. We just can't. We can't just stop. We can't just give it all up and look at the stars instead. We can't. Why can't we just say this is leading nowhere? What? This is why cosmic history is utterly necessary. And I see this in my life. I like to have a house and a garage to park my car in, or a car to park, or a car to drive around, or in a job so I can keep all this stuff. And I was fortunate to go visit Diedrich last year and spend 2 weeks in his retreat center in Costa Rica, where, I mean, everything was taken away from me. I went down there with all my electronics and everything, and as soon as I walked in, let me have your phone, let me have your computer. And so for 2 weeks, the only electronics that was allowed was a camera. So for 2 weeks straight, we're doing his 6-step circle process. We're doing Course in Miracles. We are taking hikes. We're going swimming. We're doing all of this without any of the worldly things. And I realized so much about I've always thought that I really need all of this stuff, but that 2 weeks was a nice eye opener, because I really believe that I don't need all of that, and not that I'm ready to just drop everything and go, but I do believe if an opportunity and a purpose came up to where I had to walk away from the society and the way I've been living, I believe that there is a possibility that I can do that. So I just kind of throw that in, and I know there are plenty of people that have done that. One person that comes to mind, I know Craig Villarubio. He had his whole deal here in the LA area, in a nice house in Beverly Hills, and he just bailed and did his movie, and he's still going strong, doing some stuff, and I applaud him for what he's doing. I think he's a great example of living in trust. Okay, so next paragraph. Profane history is actually the record and philosophy of historical materialism. That is profane history. When the historical materialism becomes a planetary phenomenon, it becomes terrifying, and it is. And we're right in the middle of it right now. When it becomes a dominant planetary phenomenon, then actually no other voice is really allowed, authority or ultimate power, if it is not a voice that reflects to some degree or another the unrelenting force of historical materialism. That is what creates what we call terror. Terrorism itself is a reflex response to the tyrannical dominance of historical materialism and its choking effect on the world of the soul. Now, this is very alive right now today in the terrorism. The terrorism is picking up. And what he is calling it is an unrelenting force of historical materialism. That doesn't mean, when he's talking about materialism, he is to a degree talking about the corporate structure, the materialist corporate structure, but also he's talking about the belief that we are a body. So the terrorists not only are rebelling against this established world structure, but also they take it personal because they believe it is a body, so they got to go out and shoot other bodies, and lash out at the physical as material, the corporate as a material, and and as they do that, it's a very thought system, ego thought system of victimhood that the world is doing it to them. Okay, it is at this point that the prophetic energies. Okay, here we. Blah, blah, blah. Okay, it is at this point that the prophetic release emerges. The law of time and cosmic history manifests the galactic Mayan mind linkage and include the prophetic codes and keys for release at this moment in time, when the need has peaked for a radically alternative vision to the one currently dominating the world, mind, and soul. The role and function of the transmitter and receiver of cosmic history is to communicate. We are communicating devices, the prophetic voice of a larger context, which is the context of the law and time, which is Holy Spirit. This voice is all but lost in the profane vision of historical materialism. Through the rapid spread of the 13-moon calendar, the larger context of the law and time begins to breathe into a highly corrupt world body and slough off the dead world soul to reveal the new shimmering planetary human. So what is being emphasized here is the rapid spread of the 13-moon calendar. And then just a short note about that before I close. I don't have a whole lot of time. I went to a event during the week where there is what's called a day out of time, which is July 25th, where the 13-moon calendar ends. And then there's a day that it's called a day out of time where we are to do nothing that is governed by a calendar. So, and I like that analogy because of the analogy of meditation, and I'm taking that into my meditation, because in my meditations it is essential for me to leave out anything, activity that requires a calendar, which means work, finances, obligations, I've got, when I have to do this, when I got to do that, when does this have to be done, when does that have to be done. In a space of meditation, by meditating that way and leaving all of those responsibilities out, is when I can move above the control that the calendar obligations have for me. So I thought that was a great analogy for me, that I can take that that day out of time into my daily practice of meditation, where I will take, instead of a day out of time, I take 20 minutes at a time, 2 times a day or 3 times a day, or whenever, or even get to the point when practicing the presence, since I'm practicing the presence out of my ego survival obligations out of time. So on that note, I will close and I hope that this subject is interesting for some, and I hope some of you guys enjoyed it. So I will turn the mic over to the quote of the day portion for today. Thank you.